Hello there everyone. Today I want to take a little bit of a break from the survival world and building structures in general, and I want to try my hand at organics. I'm really inspired by people like 90 who make these amazing organic builds that make you think, how is that even Minecraft? And I've been thinking, I've really not been paying a lot of attention to this specific skill in Minecraft. I've only been building structures. Every time I tried building an organic, I usually gave up before it even got anywhere. And so I wanted to change that. And that is why, in the coming weeks and months, I'm going to be building organics as well as structures. Because I think this skill is very important to know, and it's something I would love to be able to do better in the future. And that is why in today's video I'm going to be taking you through the process of me making an organic build, the techniques I use, the idea of the build, and everything in between. If you enjoy my videos and you would like to see more, don't hesitate to subscribe to the channel and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on any new videos that I'm going to post. With that, let's get building. Getting the idea for the build was actually pretty simple. I knew I wanted to make a snake because I've always wanted to build a serpent in Minecraft. So I started searching images and drawings of serpents doing different things or in different environments on Pinterest, because I think Pinterest and maybe ArtStation are some of the best places to get inspiration. After scrolling for a while, I found this picture of a snake going up a sword, and I decided that that would be the perfect build to try and make. Now, as you can see here in the planning stage, I kind of made the sword too small, and it was not big enough to make this snake as big as it is in the drawing and have it detailed as well. And so I just decided to make the snake smaller and have it in a different pose. I don't have a lot of experience building snakes or any animals slash organics, as I've said before, and so this was a pretty daring task, and it took me a bunch of different tries of building the head before I actually got somewhere that I liked. Now I want to show you the technique I used to make the head. So you need to install the Axiom tool, because I think it's one of the most useful tools, and I've established in my past videos that I absolutely love it. Of course, yeah, you can build this without it, but it's just really convenient for me. And here you can use the Axiom interface tool, which kind of doesn't even look like Minecraft anymore, but it's fine. You can go to the shape tool, where you can create different shapes, solid shapes, flat shapes, spheres, cubes, whatever you want. And for the snake head, I used the sphere tool first. So you have a sphere right here. You can choose its diameter. Let's make it bigger, but in the video it's smaller. You can just do whatever scale you want and make a sphere. Let's make it lime concrete, because I think that's what I did in the video. There we go. And snakes have like a teardrop shaped head, but one side is kind of flatter than the other. I'm not an expert, but that's how I understood it. I made it a 2-block center sphere. Let's just make it a odd number so I have an easier time finding the center of it. There we go. And now with the path tool, you can just make a path or make a point in the path and take it to the center of the build. There's probably a more effective way to do this, but I'm just going to show you what I did. Then by clicking E, you can extrude another point, take it out, also center it. Then you do any angle you want, but I prefer doing a straight angle, because then you can just rotate and scale the head in whatever place you need using the same Axiom tools. And now you override radius, or I feel like this might work, but it's gonna look weird. So just override radius, and on the second point, make it, not on the second point, on the first point, make it a bit thicker, like this. And then here, just the kind of smaller, you can push it in, boom. And this could kind of pass as a snake head. Of course, I'm not the best builder, but this is what I used in the video, and so this is what I'm gonna show you guys. And oops, and here it is, the snake head. Of course, you should smoothen it out with smoothen it out by hand. And if you want to get it in a different position, just select it using the magic select and Control X. And now you can unlock rotation and rotate it in any direction you want. Using the same exact technique, I made my snake's head, rotated it in place, and then I started coloring the build. I made the sword's hilt golden with golden accents, the blade a normal gray, I think I used stone just to simulate steel, and I made the snake white with a red eye. Color schemes are very subjective. You can choose any color scheme you want for your build as long as you are happy with it. I easily could have made the hilt green and the snake red, but it might not have looked as good to me. and it's gonna change quite a bit by the end of the build because I end up not really liking it. Here you can see me adding some andesite walls to the blade of the sword so as to smoothen out the curves a bit at the edges of the blade itself. Then I started messing around with some highlights and shadows, trying to figure out where they're gonna go on the build. I also edited the ends of the hilt because I thought they were gonna be golden, but then I got the idea to make them black, and at the end of the build they're gonna end up being wooden. Also, I finally got the head shape of the snake down to something that I was content with because the other ones just looked weird, it didn't look enough like a snake's head, and this one looks pretty alright in my opinion. Then by the end, I start texturing the blade of the sword, getting some whites and some darker grays for the shadows. Since the next part of the build is basically all texturing, I'm going to show you two tools given by Axiom that really help me out when figuring out color palettes and colors to use for shadows and highlights. All you have to do is get into your inventory, of course on creative, and you have two tools right here, the color picker and the gradient helper. So you can pick out three colors, a highlight color, a midtone color, and a shadow color. I'm not the best at explaining color theory because I don't really know it, I just kind of go with what I know. And you can either use the gradient helper, which as you can see I already put in the inputs. You put in your white wool and your gray wool, and you get some intermediary blocks. You can even change these because they have a couple more ideas, I guess, that they can give you. This one is kind of iffy in my opinion. It doesn't really give the best gradients out there, but what you can use if you want is the color picker. You can put your block right there and it gives you blocks with the same color. And then if you want to transition, you can just go like this to darker blocks, and you can find yourself a gradient that you like, and then to lighter blocks. And you can also change hues to go to different colors, and this is what I used most of the time to find colors for this build. And just like I said, this next part is going to be all about texturing and coloring. I went in and got the final color of the snake, which was orange with a yellowish tan underbelly. I went through pink, black, green, but this is the one that I really enjoyed the look of and I actually went with. I also put some highlights and some shadows in places to make it look a bit better. I am in the learning process of using light and shadow in my builds, but I think it turned out pretty alright. Then I changed the hilt's ends, as I said, to a more wooden color, although for now the shadows are inverted, and I made the background into a very large window. This is going to be the toughest part of the whole build because even in the end I'm not really that happy with how it turned out, but it was something that I really wanted to try. I messed around with a bunch of different patterns on the window and I ended up going with a sort of sun rayish pattern and a golden color. I wanted to try and thicken the border of the window on top, but the shape was pretty weird and it is not perfect at the end of the design, but it looks pretty okay. I ended up trying to smoothen it later. Then for the window, I tried making some different glass art with vines. I even started making a pixel art rose, but I made it too small and I scrapped it. I tried the shatter brush, which was pretty cool because it allows you to make like a shattering pattern on the window. This ends up actually staying in the final design, but I don't implement it until like, I think it was actually the last thing I did for the whole build. And for now, I just do the normal flat glass color, and I end up doing some rays coming out of the window to like simulate light going into the room and off of the sort of borders and little soldering on the window so that it gives off a pretty cool effect, I think. And then someone on a Discord server helped me out with some ideas on how to make the borders look more realistic with how the light bounces off. I made those light effects using some sandstone, smooth sandstone, and some packed mud for the shadows, ancient debris, and soul sand for the borders of the window to make them darker. For the actual glass on the window, I used the same shaping tool in Axiom that I used to make the snake's head with, and I layered some glass circles to make a sun effect, like different light emanating from a source. It turned out pretty alright, but it does not stay in the final design. I finally realized that the color scheme of the hilt was not contrasting enough with the background, so I changed its golden color to a bluish color using warped blocks, dark prismarine, and some white accent blocks. A very important step while making organics that you definitely shouldn't forget is smoothing out the build. I actually tried making some scale patterns, I guess, using yellow candles, but then I scrapped that idea because I really didn't like how it looked. Using walls, fences, slabs, stairs, any blocks like those, you can basically make the shadows in between full blocks look less harsh, and that way make your build look much better and much smoother. Reaching the end of the build, the last details were just adding some light blocks in between the glass layers of the shattered glass to give it a nice light effect, as well as on the actual body of the snake, on the blade of the sword, and on the hilt to have the highlights actually have some light on them. And with those final details in, our build is finally done. Thank you for watching my videos. I discovered that making organics is actually really fun, and it's a great way to learn coloring, texturing, and a bunch of other building tools that are going to come really handy in the future. With that, I'll see you on the next one.